Today is January 14th, 1997. We're interviewing Micheline Marmor. I'm Mark Gross. We're in Center Reach, New York, and the interview will be conducted in English. Today's January 14th, 1997. I'm Mark Gross. We're interviewing Micheline Marmor. We're in Center Reach, New York, and the interview will be conducted in English. Would you give me your name, please?
My name is Micheline Marmor.
Would you spell it?
M-A-R-M-O-R. And the first two?
Please.
My first name is M-I-C-H-E-L-I-N-E.
And your name at birth?
Micheline Kaplan, K-A-P-L-A-N.
And your name during the war?
Beaumont.
Would you spell that?
B-E-A-U-M-O-N-T.
And your first name during the war?
Same, Micheline.
And your place, your date of birth?
August 2023.
And your place of birth?
Paris, France.
Your age?
Now I'm 73.
And your parents' names?
My father is Charles Kaplan. Same spelling. Right?
Mm-hmm. And his first name?
Charles.
C-H-A-R-L-E-S?
Yeah. Yes.
And your mother's?
Estelle Kaplan.
And your brother's and sister's name?
Well, before the war?
Yes.
Okay, well, my brother is, well, do you want the name before the war?
Yes, please.
Samy, Sanson, okay, Sanson.
Mm-hmm.
Kaplan. And my sister, Hélène Kaplan.
Mm-hmm. Would you tell me about your house in Paris? What it was like?
Yeah, we live in a very nice part of Paris, which is Rue Vignon, 15 Rue Vignon, which is, if you know Paris, it's a street between actually Opéra and Madeleine, l'Opéra et la Madeleine. Well, it's known, known monument. And we were born there. My parents lived, as long as they were in France, they lived all their life in this apartment, and and we have to move during the war, during the German occupation.
Was it a large apartment?
Well, we have two. The third floor was the business. My parents has a design clothes, high class, haute couture, you will say, clothes, and this was in the third floor, and then we live in the fifth floor. We have, the bedroom and the kitchen and everything. We live there.
Did you have your own room?
Oh yes. Oh well.
Or did you share a room?
Well, I share my room with my brother and my sister.
Were the rooms large? Were there large rooms in the apartment?
To me, it was very large. But when I went back to France and look at it, it didn't look that large. Like the street, I thought the street was a big street. And when I went back, it didn't look so big.
So who lived in the house? Who was there?
I thought I closed it. Well, my mother and my father and the three of us.
And excuse me. Did you tell me about your friends? Did you have a lot of friends there in Paris when you were growing up?
Well, when I went to school, I have my school friend, and then after I went to study art, in the Beaux-Arts, which is like Cooper Union here, it's the best school in France.
Mm-hmm.
Then I have friends. Yeah,
What about when you were growing up? Before you went to school, when you were in elementary school, did you have a lot of friends there?
Not that many, no. It's not like here that you meet in each other's house. Everybody live privately.
So you went to school during the day?
Yeah, you always go to school during the day. Actually, in France, you went to school I think you even went on Saturday, but you are off on Thursday.
And what did you do when you were off on your day off of school?
It's a long time ago, you know. Well, I guess I'm home, and I must have been reading or drawing or fighting with my brother and sister.
Did you remember? Do you remember any of your schoolmates back then when you were going to elementary school, when you were?
No, I really don't. That's I remember when I study. Well, that was when I studied painting in the private. When we say private teacher, there was the woman who studied with me was Chinese, or well, she may have been Japanese, but she said she was Chinese. And I remember her name, Mitsu. And she was let me see. Yeah, that's all I remember.
Mm-hmm. And studying where were?
Well, first I study, like I say, in a private teacher, and then after I study in the École des Beaux-Arts.
I'm interested in the time prior to that, when you were just going to elementary school and in that period of your life.
Well, I don't remember that much, that period of my life.
Do you remember your parents? Did they have people over to the house? Did you have a lot?
Oh yes. You see, because in France we had the phone, but very few people had the phone. So then people will walk in without, without calling. You don't do this here anymore. So there was always people coming and going.
Your parents had a lot of friends there?
Yes, my parents, but they were very busy with their business. They didn't have that much time for friends. They have that business, design clothes, which was very interesting because they have a lot of people working for them. They have the seamstress and the tailor, and they have the model, the people who wear clothes, and the people who wear clothes have to speak English because a lot of our customers were American. And that was very, very interesting.
And they made these clothes, you said, on the top floor of your house? That's where where the office was?
No, the third floor.
The third floor?
Yeah, there was everything was dedicated to the business.
So people would come in every day then to work?
People will come and work, and we have a lot of sewing machine, and it was an atelier, you call this?
I don't know.
Where they work, all the machinery and things.
Like a little,
yeah.
a sewing shop.
Yeah.
A sewing
what
shop.
was interesting that every customer have their dummy. Some of the customers, they always come back. So some were kind of fat and everything. So it was built the way exactly the customer was built. And then my mother will say, "Give me Mrs. So-and-so." And I will bring the dummy, then they could cut the dress on it.
So did you help there in the?
Not very much.
Did they have how many people were working up there?
Oh, altogether about 60. Mm. And we had a man with, actually he was an Arab, with the name Charles Kaplan. And what I didn't like, he used to walk me to school. And I didn't like this.
Why?
I don't know, just didn't like it. With a uniform. I didn't like this.
Did you celebrate any Jewish holidays?
Well, my parents believe in God, but they were not religious. The only time we went is for Yom Kippur. You play safe on Yom Kippur. Maybe another holiday. But they were very working all the time. They loved their work, and they were working all the time. So I hardly knew. I knew I was Jewish, but I hardly, I was not that aware. Because in France, you never talk about religion. It's it's not polite. You don't ask person, what's your religion? In this country, religion is very important. You know, everybody has to belong to, but not in France.
Did you have other family there besides your parents, aunts and uncles?
Yeah, we have a big family. My mother has 3 sisters. Let's see, 3 sisters and a brother.
Where did they live?
In Paris.
Did they get together? Was there family gatherings?
Oh yes, during the holiday. And then my grandfather and my grandmother. Yeah, during the holiday, we had a big, big family. That's what I miss here, you know, because I don't have a big family here.
How often did they get together? Did the family?
Or for like Passover. Yeah, or if somebody got married. So we all meet. There was a lot of family because they all have children.
Did they get together with the children and the entire family? How very often did they?
Well, for special occasion. Not, I told you my parents were very busy working.
Were you close to any of your cousins?
Yes, my sister more because she was older. Oh yes, we were very close.
And did you have an opportunity to play and to after school?
I don't remember. I know we stay home. It's not like in this country we go from one friend to another. Everybody stay in their own family. I play with my brother and my sister.
But you don't recall any other friends at that time that you can remember now?
Oh yes, I have a special girlfriend, which we talk on the phone a lot, and yeah, I forget I meet her. But
Jewish? She Jewish?
Yes, she happened to be Jewish. Yes, and you know it's far away, and I don't remember that much about it.
Did your mother have time to do any cooking?
No, we have, my parents actually, we are wealthy because of the business. So we have a cordon bleu cooking because actually all the model, you call that the model, people who show the clothes, they were eating at noon. So the cook was cooking for all these people.
And on weekends too, or just during the week?
No, just during the week. But I remember we have to deliver some clothes, and if it was not ready, they will work most of the night. Everybody.
That happened very often?
Sometimes. But it was really an interesting life in a way. You know, there's a lot of coming and going.
The customers?
Yeah, and a lot of them come from the United States and all over the world they came. They had a good reputation as
the clothes?
Know, yeah.
What type of clothing was it?
All type. My mother was doing the dress and the evening dress, and my father was doing the suit with, you know, there was some tailor there too.
Was each article of clothing custom made for a particular person?
Everything is custom made just for one person. They'll have to choose the design and then the material, and this is the way to work.
Was the clothing expensive?
Well, it must have been, but you know, I don't remember, but I know it must have been expensive. Yes.
Did you ever encounter any anti-Semitism when you were growing up as a child?
Well, yeah, some teachers were anti-Semite.
What happened?
Well, they were saying, I don't remember, but I know it was not comfortable because they know we were Jewish, and they must have done some remark. I cannot say what, but I felt it.
Was your brother and sister, who was the oldest in the family?
My sister was the oldest one. And then my brother. My sister is 3 years older, and my brother is 4 years younger.
Did they have friends over to the house? Do you recall? Or?
Well, yeah, I think so. Yeah, they must have had friends, but
What was the street like? Do you remember? Was it a big street? Was it a wide street?
well, I thought it was big till I came back 25 years later. It was a very nice street. And there was, right in that street, there is a store called Fauchon, which is very known even in this country, where they sell very good food, special kind of food. And at the end, there was a Cinéma de la Madeleine, a movie theater called La Madeleine. And at the very other end of the street was a department store called Le Printemps, the very end. And not too far was La Gare Saint-Lazare, Saint-Lazare station.
And so you were telling me you live on the ground floor of the house.
No, not the ground floor. We live in the third floor.
You live on the third floor.
Yeah,
And
yes.
where was the
And
clothing made?
The business was in the fifth floor. The whole fifth floor. It was a big house. I mean, a big apartment house. And then the fifth floor was where we live, eat and sleep. And then my parents got some customer who didn't want to walk, especially American customer. They didn't want to walk street floor. So my parents built an elevator. It's still there. That was my parents doing. They built an elevator.
To take people up to the fifth floor.
Yes. Yeah, the whole house.
And what about the other floors in the building? Were they occupied too?
Well, the second floor was somebody doing a millinery, doing hat. And the first floor was somebody doing, how do you call, corset, brassiere, and all kind of things like this. And then we have what you call maid room. Maybe we had 2 maid rooms at the very top.
The sixth floor. Was there a sixth floor to the building?
Yeah, the sixth floor maid room, because it became important during the war. Actually, when I started, well, we had maid, but not later on we didn't. So I asked my mother to let me use one room that I make like a little studio to paint and draw.
How old were you then when you did that?
Well, 16, about 17. This part is not very clear, because I didn't think about it. You didn't tell me you were going to ask me, so I didn't think about it.
Tell me what. Do you remember the room that you were in though, and when you were growing up?
Well, what I remember is every room has a fireplace, which is nice. And then we have, and the kitchen was, well, across you have the stair, and across where all the material was, wool and silk. We had everything there. Later on, we use it as a kitchen.
Did you feel that you had plenty of living space? That there was plenty of space for you?
Oh, yes, yes. For France, it was a big place. I know, because during the war you have to light the fire, bring how do you call charbon, chalk, and light the fire.
And every room had a fireplace, did you say?
Yeah, every room had a fireplace.
That's how the building was heated in the...
Well, I guess most places must have been like this. I always like fireplace.
When did you notice that things changed during when you were growing up?
Well, the war started in '39, I think. the declaration of war with France started in 1939. But nothing happened for a whole year. So we were living normally.
There was no change in your life at all
No.
during that period?
No, we had no chance because we never dreamed that the German will come to France.
And then what happened?
So I think in I forget when the German came to Paris. I have the date.
1940?
Well,
Was it?
I have the date. Anyway, when the German came to Paris, everything was still normal for almost a year. But they started very, very slowly. Shall I go on, because I wanted to look at them.
But well, you say when did you see German soldiers?
Oh yes, when they came to Paris, and actually they were very proper. You know, very polite. They will give you your seat in the subway, and no problem in the beginning. They were very, very nice. In the beginning.
What space did they occupy when they came? Did you know where they lived?
Commandature, it's called. I really don't know where they live, but I saw them.
And they were all over Paris.
Yeah, they were all over Paris. And what was I doing then?
Do you remember what you were doing the first time you saw them? What they were?
No, I mean they were all over. So can I look at the date or something? Not good, huh?
Yeah, well, the date we can check the date.
Okay, so
say,
the beginning was first was the propaganda. After a while, they started what you call propaganda. So they started to say horrible things against the Jew. Like they will say the Jews are dirty, they have grissière.
the what?
Grissière.
Grissière.
Grissière, hook nose, and all the problem in France is everywhere in the world is because of the Jews. So in the beginning, people were, didn't take it seriously. It was like a joke.
Who was saying this?
On the radio.
The French radio?
Well, yeah, there was only the French radio there. So you listen, but little by little, people start to believe it. You know, when you repeat, and some people were glad to believe it too.
Who was saying it on the French radio? Who was? Do you remember?
Well, it was in French. I don't know who said it. I guess I don't know if it must have been the collaborateur, I guess. Is that the same word? Yeah, the
Yes.
collaborateur. And then, well, it was a very, very slow process. They started by, let's see what they started by. Yeah, all of a sudden they say every Jew has to go to the police station and just register. Nothing else. And, you always obey the law in France. So we all went. If we have known, we all went and put our name. Then, after this, let's see, the next thing was
when you went to the police station.
yeah.
Who took care of this? Who was in charge of doing this, of recording your
Well,
name?
the government.
The French or the Germans?
No, the French, not the German. The French follow the French law, what they ask.
Did you see any German soldiers when you went to register?
I really don't remember. You know, I was 16, right? So then the next thing was, let me see, if I could do it correctly. After this, it was, let me see. Yeah, well, you have to give up your radio. You know, there was no television. You have to give up your radio. Of course, we kept it anyway. Then, too bad I couldn't refresh myself.
You can take a look if you want to.
Okay, let me see. Just because I put it chronologically. Oh yes, something else. I'm in police station. Blah, blah. Okay, well, there's something else happened in my. See, it's good if I can look at this.
Yes, certainly. You can
Yeah.
look at it if you wish.
Something else happened. All of a sudden, they put an Aryan administrator. My parents worked all their life to build a beautiful business, and then they put, you know, Aryan in the same name, right? Aryan, non-Jewish, administrator, and my parents were not in charge anymore. That woman who came and then direct everything.
Was that a woman, did you say?
Yeah, it's always a
French woman?
Yeah, yes. And then you have to write in front of the door, Jewish business in German. I don't know, forget. That everybody knows that it was. So that was really disturbing. You know, the place didn't belong to you anymore.
When did this take place?
Okay, let me tell you. I have to read. In April 41. April 41.
That's when they
when they put somebody. Okay? And then after, let's see. The new law came in June, when you have to register in the police station.
June of what year?
All this was 41. And then August 13, you see how slowly it goes? August 13 was confiscation of all radio. Okay, the two last law was the most difficult.
We're going to stop because we're at the end of the
okay,
tape.
good. How do you?
We were, yeah, we were talking about how things had changed. This is tape number 2, interview with Micheline Marmor. It's January 14th, 1997. We were talking about how things had changed so much. And you mentioned that an Aryan administrator was put in charge of your parents' business.
Yes.
Did you have any contact with her at all?
Well, I see her every day. I mean, she came every day to the business. That was their job. But can I finish the law? You know,
sure.
Because after all this law were, I told you, very slow. And the two worst one was you cannot go out from the age. You cannot go out between 8 o'clock in the 8 o'clock in the morning. No, 6 o'clock in the morning. You can go out between 6 o'clock in the morning till 8 o'clock at night, in the afternoon, and that's all. You couldn't go out. Then you couldn't go to the theater. You couldn't use a phone. You couldn't go to the restaurant. You couldn't go to the library. You couldn't go to park. And the people who has a job like teacher or for the government, they couldn't work anymore. And if you were a French officer in the French army, you didn't belong to the French army anymore. And the French consider them French. You know, they have been born there. Because before, They started by attacking all the foreigners. Or people, but then they started with the French. Then the last law, which is the worst one, they thought, well, the Jews are not visible enough. It's not always written in your face. So they decided that you have to have a Jewish star, which is the Magen David. So you have to have every Jew from the age of 6 has to wear this yellow star on their clothes, forget which side, which has to be very securely sewn. And you cannot go out without. And then they put on your identification paper a big Jew, bright red. There's nothing, we try later on, nothing you can do to take it out. And actually this was the kiss of death. Because if they ask your paper and they see Jew, you could have deported? No. You know, you go to concentration camp. You could have deported. And then I observed, and it was in a way it was funny because the next day, all of a sudden Paris looked like the 1st of July. Star all over. The Jewish star all. And people look at each other like they didn't believe. Nobody knew who was Jewish or you were not. And they were stunned. But, of course, it was dangerous. So I observed people, the way they carried the star. And I didn't like it. Either they are scared or they were ashamed. So they put something, you know, like a briefcase or something like this, or they bend their head. And I look at it and I say, well, there is no shame to be Jewish. The shame should be on them, not on me. So I remember I had a very nice dark blue dress, and that yellow star was on it. And I decided, well, let's go. So I decided to put very bright yellow earring and yellow flower in my hair. So my mother looked at me and said, where are you going like this? So I'm going, I said, are you crazy? You want to be arrested? So I argued with her, so finally I took off the flower. But as soon as I was in the street, I put them back. And I walk, you know, straight. I always walk straight during the war. And then the policeman saw me and stopped me and got really annoyed. He said, if you don't take off this flower, I will arrest you. So I guess I took off the flower. And this is my first act of underground, my first act of rebellion. And I have another experience, which was one of my friends from school was black, from the Martinique. And we bicycle. You know, in France, very few people have car. My father had a car. So we bicycle, and in front of us, there was a camion, a truck, full of German. You know, first a German soldier looking at us. And then she looked at me and she said, you know, you are lucky. I'm black and I cannot hide it. But nobody see that you are Jewish. I thought that was interesting. So it became very dangerous. They were arresting people all the time. And there was a lot of, how do you call when you denounce people? Stolpigen, what's the word for?
Collaborators?
Not collaborator, but people who give your name. Dénonciateur. Is that the word? Dénonciateur, I think. There was quite a few, and my mother was terrified that, and she was so scared for us that she sent my brother and I to sleep in the maid room, in the 6th floor. And my brother will sleep half of the night, and I will stay up listening. And then I will wake up my brother, and he will stay, and I will sleep. And we did this for a few nights. Then my mother said she got so worried that she decided to send us to Free France. So she sent us to the woman in charge of the worker. She lived in the banlieue outside of Paris, and she sent my brother and I there. And from there, she paid somebody to take us from Occupy France, it's called Occupy France, to Free France, Zone Libre. And I remember we went to the station. And I remember it was really, I never forgot, because it was the worst place to be is the station. That's where the German, because of course everybody wants to escape. That's where they pick. So I didn't take my Jewish card. I took my student card with me, like I'm a student. And then we went in the station, and inside the station there was like a school bus, a big bus. And all inside were a lot of, full of people with, sad eyes. And then I understood they were arrested. And I look at it and I say, I should be with them, It was very, very sad feeling. So when we got to the town where we're supposed to pass from, I forget the name of the, and the man who supposed to take care of us said, well, I'm sorry, but you cannot pass in a boat because the German killed people yesterday, and it's too dangerous. So we got very upset. I said, we cannot go back. We have to go to Free France. So finally, after we begged him, he said, well, if you want to cross by feet, right? That's what you say? By foot, by feet. Then I can arrange something. So all day I look for a bathing suit in case. And then so he told us that the patrouille, you call it a patrouille? The people, the German who walk?
Patrol.
Patrol, okay, patrol. Come and go. So he said, I want to be in a boat. When I take my handkerchief, you run for your life because you don't have too much time. So, but he said we didn't have to swim. And then I was with my brother and a man very tall. And both of them just go in the nude, they didn't. So we start when he showed that handkerchief, we start, and then the man in front of me was so tall, he started to have water up to here. So I look at it, I say, well, I have to swim. We had to swim. And it was very difficult because I had some sandal were bringing me down. So as I swam and then clothes, as I swam, I took off my shoes and it was very scary. And because it was so scary, I started to, from nerve, I started to laugh. You know what I mean? Laugh. And my brother too, it was nerve. And we were lucky, we just got on the other side.
How far was it?
Well, it was, and there was a current. It's a good thing that we both knew how to swim.
Do you remember what the water was? What?
Well, I think it was in September.
And what was the body of water where you were swimming? Was it a river? Or?
Yeah, it was a river. Yeah, it was a river.
Who was it? Just you and your brother?
My brother and a man I didn't know.
And
no, I know he was tall.
What about your sister and your mother and father?
Well, I forget to say. Oh, my parents stayed. They came later on.
What about your sister?
Well, I forget to say. Because my parents have American customer, one of them who lived in New York gave, to come in this country you have to have an affidavit. So she put an affidavit for one child. And because my sister was the oldest, then she went in 39. So that was one person saved. So I stayed with my brother. So we got to Free France. And later on, my parents came later on.
You mentioned the student card that you showed.
Well, the student card didn't have a Jew on it.
Yes, and where were you going to school then?
I was going to the Beaux-Arts in Paris, Here I was studying drawing and anatomy and painting. Later on I studied fresco. So what happened, we went to Nice. Because Nice was occupied by the Italians. So thousands and thousands every day, it was like paradise. Because the Italians were wonderful. They were better than the French. Because, not all the French, but the collaborators, because the French wanted to apply the German law, but the Italians were in charge and they didn't let them. You know, it was for the, well, that was the collaborator government, you know. So if the Vichy government, and if it was like they wanted to deport even children, but the Italian won't let them. So then for about a year, the life was normal. My parents came and the life was normal. I went back to another school, art school, which is called Art Décoratif, and I studied there for, you know, and then life was normal. I used even to take my bicycle to Monte Carlo, which is close by.
Where did you live?
I live Rue Shakespeare, I think.
In
With my
apartment?
parents. We live in an army man, a commandant in the army. It was very nice. We lived there, but it was not dangerous, you know.
Did your parents have difficulty getting out of Paris?
Oh yes, it was very complicated. I don't remember exactly how, but I know that they were in a car and with some German soldier there, German officer.
And what year did they come? Do you remember what year it was? Or
Well,
how long
very
you'd been
very
there?
few months after.
When was
I
it?
think that was in 1941. I think 1941 we went to 41. Yeah,
And when
41 to 42. I think was peaceful. You know.
And when you got out of the water, when you
Yeah.
were on your way, how did you
Well,
you
we
get
have
there
to
the rest
run.
of the way? How did you get?
We have to
Yes.
run to the town
Did you on foot?
on
Did you-
foot. Yeah,
was
it
all
was
on
cold.
foot?
I was worried that my brother catch cold. You know, he was the younger, so
And
that was a that
the
was
town was
difficult.
Nice. Was that Nice where you
yeah.
were?
Everybody knows
Yeah.
It's on the Riviera.
So it was all on.
That's
yeah.
where, well, there was a lot of place where it was occupied, you know, all this part. But where I live was Nice. So, yeah, I told you life was normal. And then from one day to another, I think it's September 42. From one day to another, the German came and occupied Nice, and the Italian left. And that was a catastrophe. And the next day, they started what you call man's hunt. They started to, you know, to try to get as many as Jews. And the terrible thing is, most of the people who came live in a hotel. Is that right? Hotel. And they all have paper like me, with Jew in it. So what they did is they go to every hotel and they say, paper, and then they were, you know, caught and sent to deportation. First to a camp in, I think in close to France, close to Paris, Drancy, and then they were deported. So the way it all started, I knew some young people from the youth hostel. When we went camping, and I knew some young people of my age and all there, and they decided to do something. You know, not to just to be a sitting duck or something like this. They decided to do something. So the first thing and they asked me if I want to join them. And you know, my parents were not too crazy, but they let me. So I worked with a man who had confidence, because I was really shy, and so he used to tell me, okay, you go to this hotel and you ask all these people who have this big, you know, Jew on their identification paper, ask them for 2 pictures and their name, you know. And then the first thing was to make false paper. Because when false paper save a life, with good paper, you were safe. So that's what I did. I went and get And then there was two people, when Pierre Mouchnik and I forget the other name, they were in a studio somewhere in hiding, and that's all they did. They never came out. And in the beginning, they were not very good, you know. They were starting, but after they became very, very good. So the first thing, I have to change my name. So I had a very good paper. Like my name became Micheline Beaumont, and the person I have the name actually there was out of France, and you know, I have a completely different background. I was born, I think, in Grenoble or something like this. And I have a Baptist certificate. And what you have to have a card for everything. You have to have a card to eat, food card, tobacco card. I didn't smoke any. So all these little, well, first the people who work got the best paper. But little by little, that was my work, actually. And the work of all these people working with me. To save people means to change their paper, find them in hiding place, and give them all this paper. And then all these young people went all over the country to find hiding place.
Who made the papers? How did you get the papers for yourself? I mean, starting with you.
Well, I didn't make it. Whoever was in charge made it.
In this photographic studio, is that where it was made?
Yeah. Well, they were. They started. But they became very sophisticated. Like around Marianne the head, they could move the letter, and then we went to. You know, we have to get stamp. You know what you apply. So we have to get stamp from all over the country. And the best place to get stamp if a town has been bombarded and was destroyed, that was very good because they couldn't check. And then a lot of French people were collaborators, but a lot helped. Especially, there was a lot of minister and priest and people even in the prefecture. Some of them were very willing to help. Well, another. So I changed my name. All of a sudden, I didn't want to meet anybody I knew because I was not Micheline Kaplan anymore. I was Micheline Beaumont. So one of my friends in school asked me if I have a place to hide. And I said, no. She said, why don't you come and live with us? And that was very nice. I came and lived with us.
Jewish?
No. If not, it won't have been any need. So one day, everything was nice. One day she told me, the mother told me, we know a family and they need false paper. And they don't know where to get it. And they didn't know I was in the underground. I didn't want them to know. So it bothered me, you know. I know I could do it. So finally, one day I say, you know, I know somebody who could make false paper. So I make false paper for them, and a few days later, they asked me to leave. Because it was too dangerous. In a way, I didn't blame them. I mean, if you hide a Jewish person, you could be deported with them. It was a very difficult thing to do.
So when you got these papers for the people, how did you go about doing that? How did you get the papers? What did you do?
Okay, so first we put them in hiding, and I was the only one. I have quite a few family, and I was the only one to know where they were.
Where were they hiding?
In apartment, in house, in monastery, convent, and the most interesting place that we found was a leprosy. You know leprosy? It's a terrible sickness.
Leprosy.
Yes.
Okay.
Nobody will ever go there, especially not the German. we had some people there. And in church too. And a lot of priests and ministers help a lot. So my work.
So then who would do the papers?
Well,
when they were in hiding, and who would do the?
Then I go and ask them for a picture. And then first we had a mailbox in somebody's house, but too much, we went there too often. It was too dangerous. So we found it a better idea. There was a photographer in Nice, Rue de France actually. And he had a business right there. And then, to be safe, he took picture of all of us. Because we came and bring the picture and whatever we want, and then a few days later we'll come back to pick up the false identity. So in case somebody was there, then I say, oh, I come to pick up my picture. And then he will have give us, so there was not too worried. He was finally deported, and he didn't come back. So...
Did he actually do the papers too?
No, oh no. The thing is, the paper, see what was so dangerous? In a way, I was lucky. I always went a little before or after the Gestapo. But if I was there, not only I will have been deported, but because these false papers were empty, so I will have been tortured. And that was terrible. I even they told you never carry a list. You have to remember, never. And I told them, if they torture me, maybe I will talk. I was not sure I could have talked. So, if you want an example of what we were doing, is, the Anne Frank, the diary of Anne Frank. Well, this woman who came and bring them all kind of things and talk to them, well, that's what I was doing, except I was much younger and I was Jewish. That's the difference. Now, in that underground, there was few people who were not Jewish, and why? There was nobody wanted to bother. First, it was dangerous, and some people didn't care. The other thing is, I can give you, sometimes they will send me to Grenoble, another part of France, where to get newsstand. So then I will go in the station and I bring back this stamp, and it's very dangerous. So I will put it, in the station in France. You have a net, and then you put your luggage. So then I will put this, and then if anything comes, I will disappear. I will go to another compartment. Like this didn't belong to me.
How far did you have to go to get the stamp when you went to the other town?
The problem is sometimes it takes so long because the underground will destroy the rail.
When you how would you go about making contact in the other town to get the stamp?
Oh no, we know. Everybody knew. I didn't know my underground. I knew the people there, but the man in charge is Henri Poriles is one, and Maurice Cachou, who finally was caught in Paris, and he was unfortunate. Well, he was so smart that he went to France and he was in charge of all the false paper in France.
What was his name again?
Maurice Cachou. That was the yarn. I have his other name. And he was caught with a list, unfortunately. He was caught with a lot of my friends. And because he have a list, they torture him so much that he died under torture. They throw him in I took his skin out. God knows what they did. It was horrible what they did. He was all bloody. I don't even want to describe it. But the other, my friend were caught that they put you, they put your head in the bathtub till you cannot breathe, And as soon as and then they bring you up and then they beat you and they torture you. And for the women, it was even worse.
Did you know people who
Yes.
went through that?
Well, half of the people who work with me never came back. Like, for example, we meet, well, everything was done on a bicycle. You know, there was no car anyway. But so we'll meet in a certain street, place like, you know, Columbus Circle or something like this. So we change place all the time. So, and then we bicycle and we talk. We don't stop too much. We talk, still moving. But once a day we all eat together. We pay somebody to cook, and we had one good meal together. Yeah. And actually, we were not unhappy. You know, we were young and we loved life. And in a way, I could say it was the best of time and it was the worst of time.
Let's stop there at the end of the tape.
Okay, okay.
You were saying that you would get together with your friends. How many friends did you have who were doing the same work?
Actually, I was just telling you that it was the best of time and the worst of time. It was the best of time because we were so close. You know, like even now. You never forget friends like this because we risk our life together. And the worst of time because it was so dangerous. Like, for example, when we meet and we were young and we were joking, you know, like young people. And all of a sudden, one person didn't come to the meeting where we eat. And then we were worried, and what happened is always somebody was caught. And somebody, you know, we have new people coming. But it was kind of scary because you say, well, everybody thought maybe next time will be me.
How many people were in the group when you got together?
Oh, maybe 15, about. Small group.
All the same age?
No, there was the people in charge. To me, like I was 17, 18. The people in charge were 25, 26, and to me they were all men. And some older, few people older too. But mostly young people.
And were they all Jewish?
Well, that's what I told you. Mostly they were Jewish, but there was a few who were not Jewish. Because I told you, nobody wanted to bother for tourism. First it was very dangerous, and then they didn't care.
And who did you have contact with? Who told you what to do?
Well, yeah, that's what I worked closely with Maurice Cachou, which was the one who finally died under torture. And he always, like, because I was very shy, you know, and very sheltered. So I was worried. He said, I know you can do it. I know you can do it. And he said, go and do this and this. So because he has so much confidence, and then after I learned the work. So there was another problem which is important. If you were a woman and you have good paper, you were safe. But a Jewish man were circumcised. And then for a German, forget it. And then in the street, they will stop man and check all the time. And there was nothing you can do. There is some children. No, not daughter, son of a doctor who has their son circumcised, and they were deported just because of this. When one of this man, Pierre Mouchnik, decided to have an operation, that it will look like not a circumcision, but an operation. So everybody they was not too crazy, but he decided to be first. So he did it. Nobody else did it. They didn't want to do it.
So that it would look as though he hadn't been circumcised?
An operation, because instead of... so that was more difficult for a man.
What if they found somebody who wasn't Jewish who was circumcised? Did they...
That's what I tell you. They depart them. They won't take... first, French, you know, only the Jews were circumcised in Europe. So what else?
So when you would get the papers, describe how you would deliver the papers then to the people.
Well, okay. All this family, I was the only one in charge. I will go, that was my work. Every day I go to see some family, and then I see what they need. You know, I make them false paper, then paper for food. You have to have an alimentation card, and you have to have baptism certificate, marriage certificate, everything we give them. But especially for people who work. So well, the story is, yeah, and there is another part, is we could, if a parent have children, if the child was less than 5, I think. No, first a child till the age of 15 could go to Switzerland. The Swiss decided they will accept children, but not grown up. But if you have a child which was under, I think, 5 or younger, the parents can go with it. So every time we saw some children that we could send to Switzerland, then we will try to, that the worst part is to talk to the parents. You know, ask a mother to give your child is a terrible thing. So one day I have a family, I remember, a big family. And I came one day and talked to them and give them everything. And then I have to bring them back false paper or something like this. It was mother, father, a lot of children, grandparents, they were all there. So I came a few days later with everything they needed, and they were not there anymore. All gone. So I asked what the matter. Well, they read. The way the German did, they read. You know, they read, they close a street, and then they, I think it's called a raid. Well, I don't know what the word could be. I think R-A-I-D, raid, right? Yeah, that's the right word. And the whole family was cut and taken away. But they say there's a little boy, about 6 years old, who was not there. So he was not caught. I said, where is he? Nobody knew. So I said to myself, I keep thinking of that child. It bothers me. I say, I got to find that. I put in my head to find that child. I said, I got to find him. So I used to go back to that street, and you have to be careful. Because if you are suspicious, they will, they will send for the German. But finally, after coming back a few times, somebody told me, I think I know some people who could tell you what happened to that child. So they told me, go to such and such address and talk to the people. So I remember I go there, but I was terrified, because that could have been somebody who, who wanted to get me. Because I say I could, I want to find that child. So I go there and knock at the door, and I say, well, I hope, And then I open the door, and these people pretended they didn't know anything. I say, what child? I say, well, I'm looking for that child who was not deported. What are you talking about? I don't know any child. What happened, I was scared of them, and they were scared of me. So they just pretended they knew nothing. And I didn't know what to do. I talked to them, and finally I convinced them that, I belonged to the underground, and I could send that child to Switzerland. So they told me to come back to talk to the mother. And then I came back, and I remember that woman, she's the most beautiful person. She had black hair, beautiful blue eyes, very tall, and I explained to her that I could take that child and send them to Switzerland. So the way we do it, we give them false paper, right? But they have to have their right name and the date of birth, and you have to sew the lining. You have to sew the lining of the coat and put the real name inside and sew it. And then we never let a mother or a family go to the station. Because you know, a mother, she can start crying or speaking Yiddish or God knows. So I said, well, okay, I meet you. I let you know, when I have not all the time. Once in a while we have so many children. So I'm supposed to have one child, me. So then I told her when. So I said, well, you meet me, we decided to meet me in a street, close to the station, but not by the station. I go there, and I waited and waited. She didn't come. So I said to myself, I guess she didn't trust me. And I was really very sad. And then all of a sudden, she appeared with a 6-year-old boy in her hand and a tiny little, maybe 2 or 3 in the other hand. And she walked to me. I always get emotional. And she said, please, take my child too. And then she gave me a child. You know the courage? And the courage it takes for a mother to give a child up. Now, I didn't understand this that much. After I had myself 2 daughters, I don't think I will have the courage to give. I'm not sure I could give my child. Because after that's all, they don't know anything anymore.
Did you ever find out what happened to her children?
No, because it was out of my hand after. I bring the child to the station, and then somebody else, another young woman like me, young lady, will dress as a nun or as a nurse, and will bring this to close to Switzerland. But it was very dangerous because half of these children don't even speak French. If the German have talked to them. So most of the time it was successful, but sometimes it was not.
What happened? You don't know what happened to the mother who got the 2 children?
I don't know what happened to the mother. And then I have another story like this. I was in charge of a couple who, they were in hiding, and they gave birth in hiding to a 6-month child. Never went out. They never went out. And then when I talked to them and I told them, look, I can send you to Switzerland. You know, your husband and your child. Oh, they were so happy. I said, well, I tell you when to get ready. So I came and told her, you know, now you have to get ready. And the woman fainted. She didn't have the courage. And they were deported. They lived where there was some white Russian. And they were deported. They never came back. This is the story of Switzerland.
Who did you work with directly to give you the names of all these people who you helped? How did you get their names?
Well, we know from, one person tell the other. One person in hiding tell the other. I have a man in hiding who stay in a cellar for 2 years. And a cellar in France is not like here. You have mice, you have, I don't know, what you cook with, what you put fire with, I forget the name. Anyway, he was living there all this time. And the people used to, you know what was terrible? That there was a lot of doctor and lawyer, and they were in hiding for so long that they became nobody. I don't think I will have survived in hiding. It must be terrible to just stay in one room, and then I was, when I, they asked me what happened and all kind of, some people say they were so happy to see me, and they used to say, here come the angel. And
did they have papers too with these people?
Everybody I took care of have to have false paper.
But they didn't use them because they didn't go
out?
Well,
they used them if, no, they didn't use them. Well, sometimes they went out to buy food and things like this. but it was a very, very dangerous time.
Were there a lot of French collaborators who were helping the
Well,
Germans
that's another
with
thing.
these regulations?
That's another thing. There was, well, very, very, especially in Nice. Now, most of the collaborators were Russian, white Russian. And the German didn't recognize between Mediterranean face, like Italian face or Jewish face. You know, the dark hair and everything. But the Russian, they knew it. They could smell them. And then, you know, it's not that difficult because you can see in their face when you are scared, you walk. So there was two, that's another story. There was two terrible men there. Russian, they have been arrested hundred of family. I mean, they were killers. I mean, if you give a family, first, if you give a Jew, you get enough money to live for a month. So they were making a lot of money. So when we decided to eliminate them, you know. So there was 3 young men. They were the killer. Like me, I never wear a gun, you know. It was, but we decided to do something, and I was all for it. So you used to know who they were and look for the way they live, where they live, what they do. And then the 2 worst one was killed, and the other, one day, I forget to tell you, when I was in school, there was, I had a friend who lived with a Russian, white Russian, and he knew me, you know. And one day when I changed my name, he saw me, he said, "Oh, Micheline, where do you live now?" So I was very uncomfortable. With friend, he said, "Why don't you come and live with us? It's very, very safe. You won't have to worry." So one day, I saw my friend, this woman from art school, and she's in bicycle, she's all in black. So I said, "What's the matter with you?" She said, "They kill him." I mean, him, George. I said, "What they kill him?" "Well, they say he did something wrong, but it's not true." So I was puzzled. When I met everybody in the evening, I say, "Well, who did you kill? Who was it?" He said, "The worst one." And this was that man who asked me to go and live with them, Serge. Serge, his name was. So I was lucky.
So who were the people that you met with at that meeting when you were?
Well,
I mean, were
people
they
like me, young people. You know, they were mostly my age, maybe a little older.
And was there a lot of killing of collaborators with the people in your group?
Most the worst one, and then after from 1,000, maybe I don't know, a month, it came down to 100. They got scared now. You know, when they saw this, you know what happened to them. Now they were not so happy to denounce people.
So you knew the people who actually killed
Oh yes,
you.
of course, they were my friend. Yeah, Ernest, Zizi, and Marc. I don't know.
Remember their last names?
Well, Ernest Appenzeller, Marc Levy, and Ziggy Poriles. Yeah, I remember them because I forget some of the names.
Was it dangerous to meet, for everybody to get together and meet the way you did?
Yeah, that was dangerous. You have to be very careful.
Where did you meet?
Well, I told you, we meet first for dinner, we meet. But sometimes we stop it. And everybody was living on their own. I was living first with a friend of mine who lives in Washington now. And we lived together, but it became too dangerous, so we separated. You know, if one was caught, like for example, if one day we lived, both of us there, and then Ernest was caught, and then we had to move because we know that they will get tortured, and they may talk, so we moved.
Where was your brother and your mother and father? When all
Okay,
this
my
was
mother and
happening?
father, well, my father was born in Russia, so he has an accent. So it was not easy to make him false paper. I had to go to the, I don't know, it's called some kind of library and find a white Russian who is about my father, you know, height, and my father looked like the Pope. Blue eyes and very blonde, and the same age. Sometimes it takes days to find this kind of paper. And finally, my parents left to Corrèze, outside of Nice. And my brother, finally, he went to the Maquis for a while. And things happened, and he had to come back. And I sent him to Switzerland. Because the problem, he was 15, I think he was 15, and he was too old. So he was to wear, you know, short pants, and he finally went through. And my sister was in the United States.
Were you aware of what was going on in other places? Did you have access to news and what
the
was
news,
happening?
yeah, of course. And then we listened to the, you know, Radio London and everything.
And did you live alone then most of the time?
Yeah, I live alone most of the time. But there is much more to say. But I want to tell you like my state of mind, right? Well, I was still young, you know, and I wanted to look good anyway. And I remember I ordered some shoes. This platform covered. I wanted it covered with certain color. And then they told me it will take 2 weeks. And I said to myself, oh, I hope I will wear them before I get caught. I wanted to wear these shoes before I get caught. You see what my state of mind? That's when, and then another time, once in a while, you know, to forget, I went to see a movie. And in the movie, you feel when it's the end of the movie. You can feel it. And when I felt the end of the movie, I started to be oppressed. You know, like, I say, oh my God, I still have to go out and live, you know. How long will I, you know, will I survive? So that was the feeling I had. I didn't want the end of the movie. I didn't want to go back to this life. And then when I came out of the movie, somebody stole the wheel of my bicycle to make me feel better, because it was very difficult to find bicycle. But of course, the other ground gave me another bicycle. And there is much more, but that I remember, you know. Well, what I want to say is the priest and the minister and some people in the government were very helpful. They were doing false paper. Bogner. There is the man in charge of the Protestant, you know, minister, who is quite known. I think he's known in this country too, Bogner. Well, I was the one who come to see him, and he has his people for like he has Jew, and he has other people for other things. And I will come, and he will give me, without explanation, he give me the picture, and he said, I need so many false paper. Then I didn't ask him anything, and he didn't ask me anything, and I will come back and give him the false paper. And one thing, they told you never fill out the paper. But I go to these people, half of them were not even French. They didn't know to write well, so then I fill the paper anyway. So, like I tell you, I always come a few minutes before or after the Gestapo. And one day before really, I was very involved. I was on the beach in Nice, and a German followed me, you know, and keep bothering me. He wanted to talk to me, everything. I couldn't get rid of him. So I got annoyed, and I say, why don't you leave me alone? I'm Jewish. So he looked at me and he said, don't worry, mademoiselle, la roue tourne. Don't worry, the wheel turn. That was interesting.
Wasn't it a risk for you to say
Yeah, it
that
was
you
a
were
risk.
Jewish?
I was a risk. I got fed up. I did not do. I took a chance. So he left me alone. But he told me, and my parents were working for making uniform for the underground. What you call the maquis. See, our resistance was more helping people. It was as dangerous as being in the maquis with arms and, sabotage the railroad and putting bombs and everything. So my parents were making uniforms for them in the maquis.
Did your group do any of the sabotage or?
No, we did only saving people. Well, later on, some of the young people, like the killer, they moved to, few of them moved to Paris. And a lot of them were caught. A lot of them were caught just few months when the American, were already close to Paris and they were caught. And they were all, well, it's a whole story. They went to Drancy, which is the place, and they, at the last minute, the man in charge of that concentration camp near Paris, it was so important for him to get rid of the Jew that already the Germans were, the only thing they wanted was to leave, to go back to Germany. So all the trains were for the German to go back to Germany. But this Brunner, I think, this man wanted any price to deport the last, especially my friend who were in the underground. So he finally gave 2 pigs and few chicken to get a train, just for the Jew. And they put that train in the back. And that's a whole story because somebody wrote a book called Le Dernier Wagon, The Last Train. And Jules Dassin, which is the man who did the plane, this the French plane, which is so Mirage. Jules Dassin. He's the one who did. Well, if I look at my book, he did. I think the Mirage. He did this. The plane, the quick plane.
The Concorde.
Yeah. Well, this kind. He's the one who developed this. He was in that. He was a very known engineer. He was in that train. And then a lot of people, they finally put a dummy. The Germans say you cannot escape, there is somebody on top of the train and you will be shot. They put a dummy. And somebody gave them, just before to leave, give them a line, something to cut the window. And they throw that dummy and nothing happened. So whoever wanted to escape decided to do it, but he didn't want to. And there was a lot of them escaped, actually. All my friends escaped. They throw themselves when the train were not that quick. They throw themselves and they escape.
And this was toward the end of the war?
Yeah, the Americans were already close to Paris.
We're going to stop here and then
Okay.
we'll pick up.
In the meantime, I could find out the name of the...
This is tape number 4, interview with Micheline Marmor, and it's January 14th, 1997. So we were talking about the American troops being near Paris and
No, oh yes, near Paris.
near Paris, and
when they were caught, yes.
yes, and
But I had
the train.
Yeah, I had nothing to do in Paris. All this time I was in Nice. And I remember, first of all, there was no light at the end of the tunnel. Absolutely. I was wondering, it will never end. Because you never dream that that you'll be liberated. And I said, it won't last. We all are going to be caught in the end. So it was. And then, it was not all. One day we decided we deserve vacation. So we all went to ski in Alpes-Maritimes, which is the mountain, you know, not too far from there. And we spent a week vacation. We deserve it.
How many of you went on vacation?
Well, the whole group. And then as I ski, I sprained my ankle. And then I had to stay a week. I couldn't move. I had to stay. And then because I decided I sketch everybody. I had a sketchbook, and I spent that week to sketch. I had a whole sketchbook of these people. So once in a while we were young, but there was a lot of friendship. And then when I went to visit these people, they keep asking me, when is the war going to be over? Well, nobody knew. So I said, well, I think August 20. I said August 20 because it was my birthday. And what do you think? The Ally came in Nice on August 20. So people told me, hey, you really knew, huh? I really didn't know, but that was wishful thinking.
That was August 20th.
August 20, yeah, I remember.
In 1945.
45, yes, I think. You know, everything is more than 50 years ago. I had to think a lot to remember all this. First I thought, you know, I put it back in my mind and I thought I forgot. Then when one story, one fight came and another, and then after I remember too much.
Did you take food to people in hiding?
Yes, oh yes. And
where did you get the food?
Well, we got money from, not too much food, but because we give them a paper to get food. But we got money from the United States. So we'll give them money if they didn't have any.
So where were you then on August 20th, 1945?
I was in my apartment.
What happened?
Well, you could go out, you know, like they will turn over car and, you know, people got all excited. And then it was unbelievable that it was over. And we were still alive. Unfortunately, a lot of our friends were not. It was luck, you know.
Were there a lot of, were there Germans still in Nice in August 20th?
Yes. Well, they were all there. They were fighting, you know.
Did you see the fighting? In the
well, I didn't, no. I didn't go. I want to survive, you know. I'm not going to get killed the last, I'm not going to get killed the last day.
So did you see then the Americans came in?
Yes, yes.
Then what happened?
Well, what I say is, I don't know how long I stay, but everybody wanted to go back to their family. So I couldn't write to my parents or anything. It was very difficult. So we all decided to go back to Paris and meet there. Except, so everybody, you know, we kiss and we say everybody leave to their own family. So I finally went back to Paris. But the sad part is because we left, they give our apartment to a war widow. And a war widow in France, you don't touch them. And we couldn't get back to our apartment for a long time because we had to take a lawyer. And that was my parents' way of living. That was their life. So it was not that.
What about the shop, their shop?
Well, yes, that was after we took a lawyer and we went to court and to court. And finally, we finally got the apartment. But the day we supposed to take the apartment, there was a lot of collaborators who didn't want us to go in. They were there to stop us after the war. But that day we couldn't go. So this time we came with the league. You have the same thing here. It's an organization against this antisemitism. They came And nobody was there, and we went in, and life started again. And my brother came from Switzerland, but we met at my mother's sister, and we all met there. And actually, we were lucky because we all survived. And the closest person who didn't survive is my mother's sister. She was deported in Paris, and we never knew what happened to her. She never came back.
Did you change your name back to Kaplan then?
Well, I had both names. When I came in this country, they asked me what name, if I wanted another name. So I said, well, I will take both names. I take Kaplan, Beaumont. And my brother too. My brother-in-law told us it would be a good idea.
So did life go on the way it was before
Where
the
do you
war?
want to talk about this country or France?
In Paris. No, in Paris.
Well, yeah, but oh yes, I went back to the Beaux-Arts, and this time I studied very seriously. I studied in the Beaux-Arts with Souverbi. He's a painter which is quite known, like Picasso. And I studied fresco with Ducos de la Haye. This is the name of the artist. And this was the happiest time of my life, actually, I must say, because I was free. I was doing what I like to do. So that's what I did for till I came in this country.
And when did you come here?
Well, we came here because my mother didn't want to stay in this country, in France. She said she has been so scared for us, that she was scared that we'd be deported, she has always loved the United States. She always wanted to come here. So we applied to go, but it took a long time. But I went on the French quota. So I went before. My father was born in Russia, right? So then they had to go on the Russian quota. But it's not the same quota than us. So I came with my brother. My brother was younger, he came on my quota. So I came on the French quota before my parents.
Did they have the business there? Did they start up the business again when in
Yes,
Paris after the war?
They started a business in Chicago.
No, I mean in Paris. Were
In
they
Paris,
running
yeah,
a business
they did
after
have
the war?
business, but it was never the same because, little by little, you have to go back to, and then they stole so many things. We gave things to people to hold, and they never returned it.
So you and your brother came to America?
Yeah.
Together?
We came to Chicago.
When was that?
46, I think. Yeah, around 46.
Why Chicago?
Because my sister lived there. My sister lived there, and we came and stayed with her in Chicago. Then later on, 4 months later, I think, my parents came in New York. Then I went to New York to live with my parents. But they didn't do too well here because nobody, like the kind of business they have, you have to be in the east side. And nobody told them. They took a place in the west side. It's completely different. The way business work in this country is completely different. You have to advertise. In France, it's by word of mouth. When customer bring another. So they didn't know how to develop a business like they did in France. But they did well. Finally, they moved to Chicago, and they had a good business there. But I didn't want to go back to Chicago. I wanted to stay. I stayed in New York.
What did you do?
Well, I got a job at the French embassy. First, actually, this is why my English is not perfect, because when I came here, instead of going to school and learn English, I was learning beautiful French at the embassy, because you have to speak, correctly. My work first was, they had exhibition. which is the cultural service in Fifth Avenue, which is now the consulate. They have exhibition about Victor Hugo, all this known Baudelaire, you know, all this, everything about French culture. So my work was to help the cultural attaché, the man in charge, to exhibit, like there was this big vitrine, you know, where you exhibit, I don't know, you call
Yeah,
it.
vitrine.
Vitrine,
Mhm.
So he used to give me the work, and then I will dispose it, I make it look, and then I will put the picture the way, you know, it's a beautiful room, big, three window in Fifth Avenue at 74, and then I will arrange it. And then when I'm ready, the man from the worker from the Metropolitan Museum will come, and then I will show them to hang. And then I was the receptionist. When people come, I will receive them. And that was my work for about 5 years. Then de Gaulle came and wanted to save money. So no more exhibition.
So what did you do then?
So I got a job through a friend of mine working for Alva Studio, which is the place where they make reproduction for the Metropolitan Museum. If you buy this sculpture and everything, like this sculpture down there, that come from there. So my work was to make it look like bronze, or if there was some Egyptian design, you know, that was the job I did for a little while. And then I got married.
Where did you meet your husband?
Well, when I worked at the French embassy, I decided I didn't want to study painting because I studied enough in France, but I was interested to start sculpture. So I registered at the Brooklyn Museum when they had very good teacher then. I think my teacher was Milton Hebel. And so I went there because I went there at night. Then my husband was studying on the GI's bill. He was studying etching, and then we met there. Met at the Brooklyn Museum. People think it's funny. And then we got married. And then my husband worked, and then I didn't work actually. I raised 2 daughters. And you know, my husband worked for different company, but when we moved he worked for Grumman. He's a technical illustrator. And then we moved because the first company work was Lytton, I think, and they moved to the island. So they help people to move. So that's how we came in Long Island, and I like Long Island.
Is there any statement that you would like to make before we close the tape? Is there anything that you'd like to say about your experience?
Well, it's like 2 lives. One life here and another life in France. It's 2 lives. But I always wonder what will have happened if something like this happened in the United States.
Do you think it could?
Well, it could, but what will be the reaction of the people if something like this could happen? And that was I never know how to answer. I don't think it will happen. Something like this, there is too much freedom here. Yeah, what puzzled me is when I came in this country, nobody asked you for your paper. Never once I have been asked for my paper. And in France, you can even go to the bathroom without showing your paper. That's how strict they were. So what I want to say is there was a lot of collaborators, but there were wonderful French people who did risk their life to help, to like in the, in farm, in a lot of private house. And so that's all.
Thank you very much.
Welcome. I'm glad it's over. Now this is my mother and my father, and I think it was taken in 1920 something, maybe the end of 1920.
Where was it taken?
In Paris. As you see, my mother always like nice looking clothes. Okay, this picture is taken in Paris, and the three children, my sister on the right side, Hélène, my brother Sanson Claude, and me, Micheline. And I think it's a nice picture.
How old were you when this was taken?
Well, if I look at it, I don't know, I must have been maybe 4. Well, okay, this was taken about 1932, and we had a country house close to Paris, which was called Liverdy, and this is my father's car. And on the right is my aunt, my mother's sister, which is the only person in the family who was deported and never came back. Then me, my brother and my sister, and then my mother. It was a good time then. A good time. This is my first identity card. I was 16, and of course it's in Paris, and this is, well, you see my name. And then finally, this is when you had to go to the police station and have this big juive, means Jew for a woman. And this was, I called the kiss of death, because with this paper, you don't survive. That's about all I have to say on this. Okay, this is my identity card during the underground, and this is the name who saved my life. I was no more Micheline Kaplan, now Micheline Beaumont. And I was born in Grenoble. And I kept this all through the war. Like I said, it saved my life. Finally, at the end of the war, when the Allies came, we got an identification paper to show that we belong to the French resistance, and it was done in September 44. And if you show this, you could do anything you want with that card. I could arrest anybody. It was a very powerful card at the end of the war.
Did you ever arrest anyone? Did
No.
you ever?
I didn't arrest anybody. This is the front of the card that we just saw. FFI, Force Française de l'Intérieur. This picture was taken in June 41 to refer to the story where I didn't want to be ashamed to wear the Jewish star, and I said that I was wearing bright yellow earring, and here it is. This picture was taken in 1944 in the studio of the photographer, where I will go and pick up my false paper. And if somebody was there and it was dangerous, I will just say, "Oh, I come for my picture." And this is what the picture that I will get. Shortly after the war ended in Nice in 1944, we were so glad to go back to this place, which is the house I was born, and we lived all the time except during the German occupation. And this is 15 Rue Vignon.
And what city?
And this picture is when 25 years later, I took a trip. And that's the picture, 25 years later.
In Paris.
In Paris. In 1954, Life magazine had an article called Left Bank in New York, and they pick up 7 artists, and I was one of them. And Gordon Park, which is a known photographer, I was very young, at that time working for Life magazine, came to my apartment and took this picture with on top right is a drawing I did. The sculpture is my husband, and the wood sculpture is one of my sculptures, and the painting on the easel is my husband. Okay, this picture is taken in 1977. 1977, we bought a house in Long Island, and that's where we are. This is me on the right, my cat, Daisy, and my husband, Seymour. This picture is my 2 daughters. On the right is Nadine McLarnon, and on the left is Rachel Marmor.
When was this taken?
This was taken about 10 years ago. Maybe 15 years ago.
Give me time.
This is my granddaughter, Jennifer Mary, which I love dearly. And she is 2.5 years.
When was this taken?
Recently, a few months ago. Maybe not even a few months, maybe a month ago.
Here on Long Island?
In Long Island, yes.
Thank you very much.
Welcome.